execution heavy, but the first thing I would say is I think this is not correct to show in front of spawn on Pharah. If you're going to play Pharah on defense here, I think it's actually kind of a big deal that you not ever show in front of the spawn, because you should just always assume that like there's a widow in the top window. Like even if they're not going to play widows, they're going to be like someone's on widow watching at the spawn, and that's like, I don't know, that's something that is just like a default at a high level, that like literally every map, every time there is somebody watching out the spawn doors. Like, I don't know, I used to do that for my team every single game. Like, I don't know, it's just something you should expect basically, is if you ever for any reason walk out in front of the LOS of spawn doors, they know your hero and they know your comp. And I think when you're going to pick a hero like Pharah, it's actually really risky to do something like that, because it is a hero where you really want them to like come out of spawn, realize they don't have the counter, and have to go back to spawn, right? And that's something that's just going to buy you an extra 10 seconds on defense, which, you know, it doesn't seem like much, but I'm a big believer in like every time you force them to reset, every time you make them go back to spawn and change their hero, every time they do anything that's not efficient, you're like winning the game with that. Especially on a map like KR, where it's actually quite common for teams to cap with extra time. So getting a team to like OT when they cap, and then you get more than a minute, you win, or you guarantee yourself the draw, right? So like anything that lets you play the clock down, like not showing in front of spawn on Pharah so they don't roll out with the right heroes.
If they roll out on Widow, I always play Arge as Pharah.
They'll never roll out on the shitty heroes against you. They'll always roll out with like at least a hit scan or a Hanzo or something. Like, you know what I mean? They're never, if you show in front of spawn, you'll never get the matchup you want, because they will just pick, like, it's the nature of defense, right? And like honestly, if they roll out May Reaper, what they should do is literally see you in the sky at the start of the game, and like the Reaper goes back to spawn and switches, right? They should not play that matchup. But by showing in front of spawn, you let them do that before the game starts, instead of when their clock is running down. The other thing is this position here, where you're playing on the left side. I think it's fine. I just think it's like there's some big risks associated with it, and I also think the way you rotate, like the rotation you take when they come in choke, I actually think is not correct, because when they go hotel like this, you should just chase them, is my view. You should basically just follow them.
So like poke in front.
Yeah, because that's like one of the most annoying things about Pharah is the spam, right? And especially if you consider the position of your team, right? Like when you play Pharah Mercy with an Orisa Sig and a BAP, like you're basically playing like a 4-2 split with your team. Like your Pharah Mercy do something, and then the rest of your team do something else. And sometimes you end up playing together even with Pharah Mercy, but like it enables you to actually split up like that in a group of 4 and a group of 2, and still succeed. And like you're not going to die, because the comp actually works with a 4-2. So you really want to be like, when you have a Mercy on you, you just have to remember you are like 2 heroes of responsibility. So doing things like slow rotations, like when they come in and you go around the other side, which is like much safer, it's also like you're not doing any damage or anything. And also one of the biggest things you should be looking to do on this hero is conk them on the cross, and you don't do that here. So what I mean by that is like the moment you're conking to like fly forward and stuff is like, I don't know,
the biggest potential to poke him.
Yeah, exactly. Like that opportunity is when, especially if they're going to do the hotel rotation, you should at least make them come towards you and push you to do this rotation, right? Like if they were to walk at you with the Orisa and everyone would start walking at you, then you would need to like respect it and do what you're doing. But they basically don't even look at you, and they just basically run straight for hotel. So you want to make sure that like if they're not going to push you out, you're greedy. And it doesn't mean you like chase into them and like dive on their backline instantly, but it means like shoot a conk that like just splits them up. The best thing you can do with the conk on a choke cross is like when they come in, they want to be a 6, right? They want to be stacking their cooldowns. They want the Sigma kinetic grasp to eat like 100% of your damage. But if you put a conk like on the wall in the middle of their team, and it sends like the BAP going one way and the Orisa going the other way, like very, very often, even if it's not you, like someone will capitalize on that. Like just breaking them apart, breaking their formation is actually, it just creates this like little opening. Like it's like now that guy's not behind shield, your Hanzo has 1 chance at a headshot. Sometimes your Orisa can get a halt that like extends it even further and pulls someone even further out of position. But usually the conk is like the hardest thing for them to eat, because you're coming from an off angle. They don't have Diva. So for Sigma, if you put it on like a back wall or something, he's not usually going to be able to eat it. And if you get that separation, sometimes you just kill them on the rotation and the fight's over, right? So it's like such a huge value play that even if it doesn't, it's like not, it's like going for a headshot on snipers or something. It's probably not going to happen, but like you go for it anyway, because if you get it, it's huge. So I think this rotation you make with the fact that you're running a Mercy makes me feel like this is too passive. Like if you have just a Zen Orb or something, then I'm like, I don't hate this. But with a Mercy, I feel like you have to get some value. But you don't necessarily need to dive them. Just spam them from that initial corner that you're holding at the start. Yeah. So this, I also think your focus is slightly misplaced here right when you do the rotation. Like you shoot a few rockets at the shield, and if I were you, I basically would not do that in this circumstance. My thinking is, well, I guess maybe you don't realize the Widow isn't spawned yet at this point.
No.
So there's not much you can do about her, but I would recommend like getting you really want to get like over the top of their head here, ideally, because like the shields are not going to break on this rotation, you know, like there's just no way that you guys will break their shields in whatever, like they're going to be here for like 4 seconds, right? So there's literally no point in shooting shields realistically. Yeah, once you find, I mean, I guess once you see that Widow, you're like just worried about respecting her, which is important, but it's actually not all that important because even if you die, you get rezzed here. Like they're not in position to contest a res if your Sigma shields it or whatever. So I would just look to like get on top of their head. Like once you've taken that passive rotation, and you need to find some point where you're going to get aggressive and try and two-shot a support basically, especially when they use that drone on the first cross. If you two-shot BAP, like he's dead, there's no counters. So, and when the team goes for their rotation like this is like very risky for them in the sense that if someone dies on this rotation and they have like half their team caught in your spawn, like they could lose like the whole defense off that or the whole offense off that, just because of how bad it can go when you have like half your team separated and the other like your BAP is never getting out of spawn again, you know. He just has to play with Widow or something, and then their other group of 4 has like not enough heals. So you really want to be like looking for the conks to split people up or the 2 shots to pick supports on these crosses. That's like one of Pharah's biggest utilities in this meta is like just picking people. You're more of a flanker. This, I think you're a little slow to go for that poke. I think you need to be there like preemptively if you want to do it, because your Mercy should have died there actually if their Sigma was ready. Like if their Sigma was ready to combo that Hall, your Mercy's dead. So that would be bad. And I also feel that this is like not really you, it's more your team. Like I think your Sigma should not get caught by this, because your Sigma, like once he gets in there, he's dead. You know, like there's no saving him. You know, like, and you know it too. Like once you see fucking 5 people swarming in there, you can't even. The position you're in is actually pretty bad because there's a Widow behind you, so she should just kill you here. I don't know. She like maybe isn't.
I think she just died or someone's contesting her.
Maybe someone's contesting. I don't know, but like I don't know how it's possible that anyone could contest her. If she could be literally in the spawn and seeing you there, right? Like she could be in the spot that you first saw her, you know? Like there's no way to contest that really. I just feel really worried that you're like kind of showing your back to this Widow. I get the idea of like wanting to help your Sigma here, but I think really it's up to your Sigma to like not go in here. He needs to recognize that against like a Lucio May, like your comp, you're spread out all over the map. That is like it's not like a bad strategy, especially if you're running a Pharah comp. You want to split up and put flanking pressure on them because you have the more mobility, but that also means you cannot get caught by like a death ball. So your Sigma needs to know that like when they go on him here, which they will, he needs to run to his team, not away from them, because you're already split up. So like if he goes back in here, he's like already dead, you know. Even though it takes them so long to kill him, it just doesn't matter really, because like they just commit everything and there's no punish. Like even you being here, I think is actually too risky to even attempt to help him because of the Widow. Like, is that your Mercy get body shot by the Widow or something? I don't know. Like, so that means your Mercy could have get headshot, right? Like, so it's just a little, like, I don't think you can properly be here safely with their Widow at spawn unless your Hanzo is like really certain that she is not peeking. And even then, it's just so risky because like she could always like get pressured, peek, and then instantly headshot you from spawn. You know, like even like that's what I mean. Like, and literally, unless the Hanzo has climbed up into their spawn and is sitting on like the fucking doorway of their spawn, there's no way that the Widow is suppressed really, except from that one position. I'm not sure if that's the case here, but that seems unlikely to me. It's like really hard to maintain that position when their Widow can just like go back to spawn over and over again, or could like, you know, fucking switch Genji and kill your Hanzo or something. Like, it's really hard. Like, this strat is a good strat from them because it's almost impossible to stop a Widow from getting shots out of spawn. I mean, she just runs into the spawn every time she gets pressured. So even if you had your whole team there, I think you would lose the fight in that spot. So your Sig just can't really take that fight there. He has to just, it's fine for him to be the high ground, but as soon as they're rotating into him, he's got to get out of there and go somewhere else. And like now you have a good position, I think, a decent position to defend from. The problem is you just have no Sigma. So at this point, the game is really, really hard. If I were you from this moment, once you lose Sigma, I think your risk tolerance needs to go like through the roof basically, because their spawn is not only is their spawn closer, but also, you know, you're down one. So this fight is like almost 100% lost. Like not 100%, like it's still turnable, but it's only turnable if somebody makes an exceptional play. It's not turnable by just like shooting shields. So if I were you from this position, I would be rushing a flank, like calling, like trying to get help, maybe like basically bait your Orisa, maybe your BAP tries to help Orisa, and then like everyone else goes for kills. Like go, like maybe rush through hotel, and if you're lucky, the Widow has pushed out a spawn, and you can kill her, which is pretty likely. Like once they got a pick, it's likely that their Widow will push up. So if I were you right now, I would actually be looking to go dive the Widow. Because the other thing is that once the Widow takes that position, like across from you on the high ground right now, like on any of the high grounds, like where the treetop is, if you know what that call is, like at the top of the alleyway, like if the Widow gets there and you haven't already dove her, kind of, if she gets there and then she has another grapple cooldown, like there's no way that you'll succeed in diving her. You know, you have to catch her on her rotations or catch her when she's on low ground, so she has to instantly grapple. But if she's on high ground and has another grapple, like basically if you wait too long, there's not gonna be anything you can do about her, and you're only falling further behind. Like, you know, I think this stuff with like conking their team and trying to help your Orisa, it's like in theory it's good, but this is like something you should do when your Sigma's still alive. But when your Sigma's dead, I just don't think it's really good enough. Like I think shooting tanks and stuff is like, I think you have a couple choices. I think you could go for kills on supports, but I think that's pretty hard against this team comp because there are 5 together. Or you could go for the Widow. And I think flanking through hotel and diving on Widow, I think you just have to guess that like, oh, my Sigma died, their Widow might push up right now, and you try and pick her off. That would be my like thought process to get back into this fight. Because once you're down 1 and their spawn is also closer, that's like 2 points of advantage for their team. So, you know, how realistic is it that you hold? Not that realistic. So that means you need to take some big risks like diving Widow. Actually, I think Widow suffers a lot from dive, but I think the problem here is you're just too late on this play. Like she's already in position, you know what I mean? She's already so deep. And what that means, what you can gather also from the fact that she's this deep already, is that she rotated almost instantly when your Sigma died, which is what I would expect her to do. Like when your Sigma gets picked, she's like, oh, time to push up, right? Like, you know, it's obvious, right? You're attacker, you get a kill, you push up. But I think you could have maybe anticipated that after your Sigma died and made a play on her on that rotation. But when she's here, it is really hard to do this. I mean, it's a nice headshot from her. I just think you're a little late to the party on it. I like that you instantly come out of spawn, by the way, and just run back instantly because you have too many back spawns. Like, that's definitely correct. I see a lot of players trying to push up and poke, and it's very, very easy to die doing that. So running back to your team is definitely correct here. The biggest thing is just adjusting your risk tolerance to the situation. Like, when you're behind, it's time to take risks. You know, when you're ahead, you can play more conservative, and when you're defense, it's good to play conservative, but it's just a matter of, like, and once you're significantly behind, it's better to take risks than to just like play slow and let them grind you out. At least if you take some risks, you run a good chance that they might have to use an ult or something to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like my main problem with Pharah is like when to know when I need to be aggressive.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is like Pharah is a hero where you do want to push your limits pretty hard, especially when you have Mercy on you because of the res power. So like one of the biggest things to think about is how resable is your position. Like how safe are you? And that's part of why being in the skybox on a corner is like ideal, because if you get headshot on the corner, your Mercy can like instantly res you while your corpse is falling. And even if she doesn't get it instantly, like your corpse will be on the corner on the ground. Like the ideal spot is a place where there's a straight building that goes like all the way up to the skybox on a corner, because then wherever your corpse is, the Mercy will have like a decently safe res as long as she has like, you know, gets it off really quick. And being res on Pharah it's not a bad thing. Like if you die first and get res safely, it's basically like they gain nothing, you know, like, yeah, they force your res, but very often if you've done a lot of damage and like created a lot of space when you died, that they're not going to be able to counter the res. But that's like, I don't know, that is a very experience driven thing, because it's like a very solo play hero, Pharah Mercy. Like you are a super powerful hero with the Mercy pocket, but you just have to, you know, push your limits as best you can. And then, you know, you'll see what is too far, right, and what's too dangerous. Thinking about your corpse position if you die is a big thing, and thinking about trying to pressure from off angles is the other thing. Like Pharah is a unique movement hero, so you can pressure from angles that nobody else can pressure from. So when possible, when safe, when there's not like a Widow looking at you, you should do that. And conking the cross is like a super, super good thing to be doing. Like literally every single time a team tries to rotate, I conk the cross. And now this is a really important fight on your man. I've kind of like gotten a little bit too close to it. But this fight is like critical. Like if this basically what happens to you here is causing you to lose the whole game when this happens. And I think it's actually really, really, really important that, I mean, it's kind of a quick thing, right? Because somebody does call on your team like, oh, they're all up top together. What is it? Someone says it. They're all together top right, I think. And you see that too, right? You see that the Lucio was top and he fell off, which is a little weird, but nothing crazy. And then you saw that Sigma in the front and the cart is X1. The biggest tell is that the cart is X1 and you just saw them in the front. And then you peek this corner and there's nobody there. Like you peek here and there's nobody here. So at this moment, and your Orisa seems to, like, I think your Orisa saw them up top or something, saw them in the window because your Orisa goes for this hall. And like the communication starts to come through that they're here. But I think the problem here is you guys just don't realize how much danger you're in this position. Like you're about to get surrounded basically. If you stay exactly where you are, you get like hardcore team wiped. But you realize like a little bit late, but it's just not quite in time to like, actually escape this. Because the ideal situation here is maybe the Sonic could have come earlier, maybe the call could have come earlier, but this idea is the correct idea here. To swap sides with the enemy team. Like when they go 5 high ground like this, they don't defend card at all, right? It's just like whoever's on car is really alone and like it actually is in huge danger, whoever's on car. Like my mindset would be the moment you realize they're top right and that there's one on car, especially if you see the Sonic Orisa. I mean, you kind of turn a little bit late to see that. I think your Hanzo was a bit, maybe a Sonic was cooldown or something, but if that Sonic had come out a little bit earlier, at the moment you see a fucking Orisa up here, you know that like everyone is there. You know, like that Orisa is not being there solo. So what you really want to do here is like rush car and kill whoever's on car, because you don't need to like, especially this is a great point on a map for side swapping on defense. It's something that happens like relatively often at high level. I guess, you know, like especially if a team goes for a big flank like this with a lot of players, like in my opinion, the ideal thing that could happen here is if you wall them off inside that room and then you just rush car, or you just wall your team defensively. Like you wall the cross basically right in front of your Sigma and just run, because they're like, you guys get caught in this rotation and like at this moment, like the offense is lost. I mean, not lost, but it's bad. Like, or the defense rather is like, you're fucked. I mean, you're definitely about to get team wiped here. With that Maywall is like, there's no way your Sigma is surviving that with the bongo, you know? So it's really a matter of like preempting that rotation, whether that's you walling them in. Like you don't even have to worry about a wall that separates their team and like gets you a pick. Like that's not happening here because they're on high ground. But if you literally just put a wall like in the door of the high ground, or put a wall in front of your, like kind of behind your team as you rotate across the pub, the most important thing here is that you secure your team's ability to get the car. Honestly, from this position, the real problem is I think your Zen is caught too. Like a ton of people are caught, and the other problem is you're not fighting on car. Like their position is just so good here, honestly. I mean, their Widow honestly shouldn't have even got off car. Their Widow literally should have just pushed car here or something. I think that's who was on car, was their Widow. But regardless, like in this position, it's actually really easy to go take their side. And like they have the attacker side, like they'll have that high ground. Or sorry, they'll have the defender side. They'll be on that high ground. But if you guys can interpret that they're all together in that high ground, you just instantly go take card control. Like that high ground, like there's no way for you to push in there and take them out of the high ground, right? That's like, there's no way to do that. It's impossible in that spot. Like if you try to walk up those stairs in the alley, you would all die. You know, like obviously it's just a death choking against Mei and Orisa. But taking card control from them is like, it basically invalidates their whole flank, and it basically makes them waste their time. But you guys basically get caught in their perfect trap where the one guy on cart is still able to poke you in the back, and everyone in the front kills your front line. So it's just a matter of like, you have to be a little bit quicker about interpreting that they're doing this rotation, and then use your wall. Like once you realize they're doing a rotation like this, don't worry about a wall. Like the optimal Mei wall is like the wall everyone dreams of, is like I wall the first guy out in the front and we kill him, right? But when you're in the position like this and they're running a rotation, it's better to just drop a wall that shuts them down, that just stifles them, or protects your teammates. And this wall for yourself, like if I were you, like honestly, I mean,
I didn't realize I could drop on the right.
Yeah, like if I were you, the biggest thing is like, not even this. I mean, you could drop on the right and wall in front of your Orisa. Actually, you're right in this position and save her. But yeah, that would probably be the optimal play once they've done this rotation. But I want you to focus on this idea that like if they're ever doing a wild flank like this, like they've left card control, especially when you just have the information that they have X1 on car. The moment you know they're X1 on car, and like when you come around the corner and you don't see 6 of them, like you have to just immediately know that they're doing something fancy, that it's not like a normal play. And the other thing is, honestly, like if you're ever in this position where you're just gonna wall over their wall just for you, and you're gonna like run in, and like you basically can't do anything here. So like even if they had, let's say imagine they had the perfect wall, so it was like on the low ground and you actually could not get past it safely on the low ground, then I would literally just leave your Orisa to die and go car and try and trade the person on car. Because like once this wall happens from them, you're in like the worst possible situation as a team, you know, because you're caught in a fight that you're losing and you're not on car. At least if you're losing a fight, you want it to be on the car so you get another touch, right? But this fight goes so long and it's just like not on car, right? So and that's just so like, I mean, someone just has to be identifying that like this is not a winning fight. So if it's not a winning fight, what's the best we can do? And the answer to that is touch the car. Especially once the card is this position where it's solidly around the corner of library, it's going to be very, very, very hard to touch on respawn. And like probably not successful. Just because you're going to be basically running it down mid instead of having like a decent setup. Walling is good. This is extremely risky. Like how you're kind of slow to drop the wall. If I were you, I would. You really want to coordinate with your team here, because when they're walling you like this, you should just like in the Overwatch League, you'd be dead. You know what I mean? Like if you like right now, you'd be dead. I'm pausing. Like you would not like jumping around a corner with them infrasighting you is like. I mean, the wall is like even like no matter how fast you are with the wall, you're not as fast as a Widow who's staring at you through the walls, right? So this is one of those things where you really want your Sigma to support you with like a 1-second shield for this type of play. That's sort of like an advanced thing, but it's like just a really big risk to ever run and jump around a corner with infrasight on. If you're going to peek a corner with infrasight, I mean, this is part of the problem of having no time, but like if you have a couple more seconds because you had a better card touch, then you would want to do like some ADing at the corner and try and bait a shot out so that you can like safely do this wall. But obviously the shield is like the most ideal way to do that. But just in general, if they have walls on, you really don't want to be jumping around a corner like this. You might even get the wall off and like be dead before the wall comes up, you know, just because of their infrasight. Like if they don't have infrasight, it's not really that big of a deal, but just with the walls on, it's really scary to do this. And I think this is a good wall though, like just walling in their face to get yourself up to car. I think that's absolutely correct here with shields. I don't think you actually need this ice block though, to be honest. But obviously like there's no way you're winning this fight against their Mayout, so it doesn't matter too much. But with the May wall, I think you made it to car without the ice block, and like it's a pretty important skill to be using, especially if you use it right at the start of the fight. You're basically like a dead hero, you know. Like all it does is protect you, so you want to play a little bit, at least a little risky. In that situation, again, it's like you're so far behind, you want to be a little risky. Like you want to be like fighting a little before you ice block, because realistically, unless something really good happens, like you get some stun and pick off or whatever, then you're probably like they're just in such a dominant position to close the fight. And realistically, what matters most is your cooldown. So like especially even the ice block, I think is often underrated because it lets you beat things like the halt combo that most heroes can't deal with. This is all fine. Use the ice block to break their thing. You use the May wall really well on the BAP matrix. I don't even know if you intended to do that. Like it was like at the same time, but that's like basically ideal for BAP matrix. Is put the wall like through it always. The ideal situation is if it's actually inside of your May wall. That's like as best as it can be. As long as they can't actually use the matrix to break your May wall, then it's good placement. But yeah, so this fight's fine, I think, from you guys. I think the biggest mistake comes later. Like, you probably know this is a mistake, but when you ult here, it's, like, really not correct. You have the Orisa kill, but you guys are down Orisa and you're down BAP. So it's Mail is, like, arguably the most important ult in your entire comp. And if you always want to be drilling yourself back to the win condition, which is, like, especially on King's Row, like, they have 4:10 on the clock. Like, you guys holding here, like at this point of the car, is like not going to happen. You know what I mean? It's like the odds of you holding for 4 minutes exactly where the car is are like almost zero. Like they're going to win one fight at some point. And this is a fight that already looks bad for you with them getting like a +1 kill on you. Like once I'm ice blocking here and I'm seeing my Reaper's dead, like once you're ice block on car, you see Reaper dead. That is when I think it's just like, there's no fucking way that you may ult this. Just because like you have no damage. Even if you literally freeze 6, like you get 2 kills and then you die and then their spawns are closer and they keep pushing car. So you really need your Mei ults when you're playing Mei. Like if the Mei ult doesn't get a 1 fight, like your team is not like winning the fight and setting up to win the next fight, it's a big mistake, I would say. Like unless they're using literally 6 ults to counter it or something, like, you know, at this point in the fight, you have no damage. You've lost actually 3 of your most important damage heroes. What you have left is literally you, Lucio, and Sigma. And I just don't think that's real. Like, I think you got to take the time in this ice block to think about whether you actually want to mail, and I'm pretty sure the answer is no. You also throw it right in the Sig's face. I don't know if he had kinetic grasp. Like, this is really risky the way you do this. Like, he actually has grasp. I think he just uses it. So I think he actually just missed that. But like again, like your animation is way too long to be doing things like that with mail. Like never throw it in the Sigma's face unless he literally, like, unless you know that there's no grasp. Like you see the grasp or someone calls it out, it's not up. In that case, I think he actually had the opening to just eat your mail here. So you got to be super cautious about Sigma because if again, the mail most important ult in your comp, if this goes wrong, like if the Sigma eats it, that's like obviously the worst case scenario, is like not getting it off even. But honestly, in this case, like you're really just like, this is what happens when you mail with your team half dead, right? Like it's just one of those ults where like if you have an Orisa halt or you have Reaper in the backline still pressuring them, or you know you have if you have more players up, it's gonna be way harder for them to run out of this. So yeah, the biggest thing is you just can't be you really don't want to push your limits this hard with a mail. Like even if you freeze 3 or 4 people here and you get like a few kills and somehow you and your Lucio and your Sigma are still alive, the odds of like they have like pretty much even spawns, I would say, at this point in the fight, like in terms of distance to the fight. It's just like a huge risk to be taking when you have another touch. Like your team has another consistent fight and they don't have a mail to like kill you in the spawn. So yeah, I would just say this mail, it's not good. But for a lot of reasons, like it's for the reason that you're not up as many, you're down players. It's for the reason that you can always hold, like, if you think about your mail as the most important ult that needs to be like winning the game for your team or winning a fight for your team, then what you should conclude from that is that you want to use it in the best, most optimal spot, right? Like I would say that, like for instance, like if you're defending the streets phase on King's Row, I would almost never mail in the streets fight, like very, very rarely, unless it was like really dominant for us and we could win with like just the mail and like it was that good, of literally one ult and we get a 6-man team wipe and we farm other ults and shit. But in general, I would always be saving mail for like the very end of objectives. That is where it's like most valuable, is when the enemy is like thinking they're going to finish the map and they're rushing in to try and finish the car and like cap car and kill your backline. And that's when you may ult them, right? Whereas in this position, it's not as good, like compared to right next to your spawn. Like the closer it gets to your spawn, most likely the better it will be for a mail. At this point, you're basically just delaying. It's fine. It's really important you stay on car here. Like even for these little seconds, like, I mean, you just got to identify when a fight is like utterly lost. And like, obviously after the mail, at this point, you should, like, the fight is like beyond lost. Like you could literally hit every headshot. You could turn on your aimbot and you like can't win this fight, you know? So when you recognize it's that bad, it is truly time to just like die on the cart, at like hold W into the enemy team and die on the car if you have no cooldown. Like obviously stalling is good, but you kind of walk off card here. And like, that's, I mean, it seems like a small thing, but like every second of them pushing card now is one less second of you having time on defense to get out of the spawn. And like, those are so valuable. Every second of that is so valuable. So they push card. Like before you die, they push like half a second or something. And this fight is just going from bad to worse, right? Like committing to that fight that started bad is like staggering your whole team. And people are delaying now, yeah, but like that's not good. You know, this offense has already, this defense has already gone really bad for you guys. So you really need to be playing for like that good fight at the very end. Because if you can win one solid, like if you can actually wipe them at the very end of the capture, you can plausibly hold the rest of the time. Like that is very doable on King's Row. But if you never get that stabilizing fight, then they are going to cap with a ton of time. Especially since they're running a Widow. So it's like them being in position to kill you as you come out of spawn versus them trying to retake into you. Like they probably have to switch Widow if you win a fight here at any point. They have to switch Widow. and give up ult or whatever. But in this case, like walls plus them watching spawn. I don't know if that's really on you. I think your wrist probably, or somebody should. I mean, I don't know about the D.Va here. Like, I guess you could do a D.Va to recontest. Or to like, that's all part of committing to a bad fight. Like somebody goes D.Va because they're like, shit, I got to get back fast. But that all comes from committing to a bad fight. Because realistically, you don't want to be on D.Va here. You want to be on Sigma to get out of, like, especially coming out of spawn against Widow. Because like if you have Sigma, you probably wouldn't die here. And that's a sideline where, again, like, I mean, it's kind of like your team can call that. Everyone can communicate that better. You could have a Sigma. There's a lot of ways that sideline could be dealt with. But it's all, I feel like at this point, things are kind of spiraling out of control from that bad commitment halfway through third point. And Overwatch is really a game of, like, things spiraling out of control. Like, if there's one thing that happens always in Overwatch, it's, like, snowballing and rolling people. Because like the best teams, you know, like if you get a small advantage, they will just like grind you basically, your next time to have a real fight at a high level is like in 3 minutes, you know, like they win the first fight, then they win the second fight because they have all their ults, then the third fight is like the one that actually you have any chance on, you know. So if your fight, the third fight that you actually have a chance on, you have the mail, you stabilize with, but if that fight goes wrong, the game is over. Like, not over, but it's basically as bad as things can get. You switch here. Make sure you switch. If you're gonna switch, you should switch like before you spawn. But you know, it's one of those things. Not a huge deal. But you should literally like just every second. You know, it's one of those things. Efficiency wise, it's good target focus. You don't go car, which I like. Yeah, if you don't get kills here, this is lost. So you do. It's good to go for the BAP here. This point things are looking really bad. Obviously, here I don't like your target focus again. You go for the tanks. I think you should just stay hard focused on the back line actually, because. Again, this is one of those things where like with 250, it's like if you go car, then so what? They get like a 245 time. Whereas, so like that's what you get if you go car is you stall for like 2 to 3 seconds and then you die. But you already got 1 kill. If I'm you, I'm thinking we can actually win this fight. So if I were you, I would stay focused on the back line here. Especially this guy, when he drops down like that. Yeah, they beat, so you have to chill and you're getting your cooldowns back. But I think you should be looking for this Widow. Like, instead of going car, basically. Like, especially, you have this Hammond here. Your Hammond has, like, 1,200 HP right now. So, it's actually, you basically do nothing going car here. And you're going on a tank. Like, tanks aren't going to die in this circumstance, you know? Like, when you're, you know, when people are, half your team is just trying to get out of spawn to touch car. Your ball is just trying to not die. Like, you don't have any follow-up damage. So, the odds of you killing a tank, especially with sound barrier on, are almost 0. But if you wait for the Widow's sound barrier to be like decayed, I think basically you do exactly what you did here, except you need to keep targeting the backline down. If their Widow, if anybody goes alone, like the BAP went alone and you targeted him down, which is exactly correct, because like once he's alone, that Widow runs away from him. That Widow's like not helping him at all. And then you basically just stay on the Widow. Like you call your own Widow, but like stay on her is the best thing you could possibly do here. Especially once, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of a communication thing. But, like, when you're in this scenario, you basically should be calling, like, if Hammond's on car, basically Hammond should be saying, like, I have car, and then, like, the only other call that Hammond should ever make is, like, I'm dying in 2 seconds, like, when that is true. So Hammond should be like, I have car. Like, Hammond should even be calming your team down here and saying, hey, like, it's okay, like, I can get car for, like, 5-6 seconds. I got car 5 seconds, like, and the ideal thing is somebody else, probably your Lucio, your D.Va, your Reaper, like, whoever can get out there can say, I got next. And can wait for the Hammond's call of like, oh, I have 5 seconds left. Hammond, and then Hammond's gonna make a call like, I'm dying. You know, eventually they're gonna get to him, and eventually they're gonna grind his HP out. But then your Hammond makes that call, and only then that's when you actually go car. Is when, like, you know, when your Hammond's like, I can't do it anymore, basically. And it's up to him to call that. Like, you should basically not even be thinking about the car on a hero like Doomfist, especially with one pick where you're like, you actually have a chance to turn this. You pick, like, you got the BAP. That's the most important pick in this situation. So as far as turning this fight goes, you just need to turn more kills. And what's the best way to get more kills? It's go on the Widow who's alone. Like, you even see her in the back here, but like you have no cooldowns left. So now the kill is not super realistic. But if you go on her instantly, I don't even know if she would have grapple, honestly. Like, no, like, I mean, like, if you go on her as soon as your cooldowns are ready. So like, when you go on this BAP, so there's her grapple, right as you go on BAP. So honestly, if you do this, I actually think your E is up before her grapple is at this point. So I think the beat buys her a little bit of time, but you also make a big mistake here, which is not looking at her. Like if I mean, I guess it's also like your target focus. You're still thinking about Car. The comms are a little crazy right now, which is actually kind of a problem. It's really important that these comms be like calmer, and that basically your team needs everyone just call their job. Like if you're one of the players whose job it is to stall Car, you're a Lucio, you're a Hammond, you're a Diva, then you're just setting up like Hammond's like, I got Car for 5 seconds. And then whoever's next is like, I got next. And then Hammond calls, I'm low. And then the next person's like, all right, got Car. And then that person says, I'm low. And then, you know, you just repeat. But you basically should not be communicating here. I mean, there's not, unless someone can help you, you basically just need to be like hunting backline 24/7. Because your teammates are like, when the Hammond rolls in is your signal that like, do not go Car. Like, in fact, it's like you need to kill backline. Always your mindset when these comps come out, like your comp is terrible here, right? Like with Hammond and shit, like your comp is just bad. Your comp, like what it does is it stalls Car. So the way that you make the comp good is you totally fucking ignore the Car because you know your team has a comp that stalls Car, and then you do what you do best, which is kill people, kill the squishy backliners. The biggest problem is you basically just punch at the Widow, but like it's just ineffectual because you have no CDs. Like you need all your CDs to kill her, right? Here's a small thing I noticed. I don't know how much like Doomfist you play, how much you practice this hero, but you have a pit slam here. Like you know what the pit slam is? Like if you jump over this open gap here, you can slam the Widow where she is, like really easily. Like and it goes super fast.
Oh yeah, I know.
Like if you basically just jump forward and then E her here, you actually might be able to kill her. I mean at this point again, like when you're in these desperate situations, you basically need to go like kill, and then you maybe full hold or something, and then you maybe turn with spawns. But so it's a little late anyway, but you know, just a small thing. Like this uppercut is like you're never killing the Widow if you use the uppercut like this. So you have to get on her with the E and then uppercut her. And yeah, if she headshots you out of the E, you're dead. But like this is not the time to be conservative. It's the time to YOLO. Yeah. So to review that defense, it would be play a little more aggressive on Pharah and especially look for the conk splits on the cross. Like that's one of the best things you can possibly do against a team comp. And think about, especially on Pharah Mercy, when your team starts losing players like that are unresable. I mean, obviously they're resable, you can defend the res and shit, but that signal was not resable, so it's time to get risky and go dive their backline. And when I play a Widow, I think Widow is a hero that a lot of people think counters Pharah, but if you find the timing and catch her on a rotation without grapple, she's actually a very easy kill for you. Like if you can hit the 2-shot and like just roll her, or even hit one early rocket on her and bounce her, she's probably gonna miss you. You can also like conk at her and show her your back, so she can't headshot you. There's a lot of ways you can like dive on the Widow, and actually like it's pretty hard. Like if she doesn't hit the headshot, she's not killing you. If she's alone, like the body shots don't charge fast enough. She has to body shot you like 3 times, which she should be dead by then. So when you're ever playing Pharah Mercy against a Widow, personally, when I'm playing Pharah Mercy against a Widow, if that Widow is ever away from her team, I'm constantly thinking, can I dive this Widow? Can I dive this Widow? Can I dive this Widow? Because if you dive her and kill her successfully, most likely you just run over the rest of their team, right? Like there's nobody left to stop you. So, and that goes for any sort of like counter hero. Like if you kill the McCree, if the soldier goes on a flank and you go kill him, and that's their only that's their main hit scan or whatever, that is like a huge pick, because it means you're now free. You don't have to worry about that player for 15 seconds, and you can just go hunt more kills, hunt backline, hunt tanks, like do whatever you want. But once it's all about eliminating that threat to your life so that you can not be distracted by it and just focus totally on dealing damage. And then on the Mei, it's like just trying to catch their rotations preemptively, and especially if they're going for a crazy rotation, like coming out of high ground and shit, don't worry about splitting them up with the wall. Just wall in their face and go get card control. That rotation that they did is like high risk, high reward for them. Like if they catch you, it's really good for them because they just win second for free. But if they don't catch you and you guys get to cart and you actually like, sometimes what happens there is you'll get to car and no one will be dead, but you'll literally just be like sitting on your side of car and they sit on their side of car, and like neither team can like push you off car, but then you're just winning on defense. Like you're just stopping the clock on defense. If you side swap and like you can't kill them, it doesn't matter. Like you're holding car. So as long as they can't make car progress and you guys are fighting decently, that is a good thing, right? Melting that clock down always. And then on the Doom, of course, like in the recontest, when your team's on this bad comp, like you need to basically get a lot of kills to win. So don't go for the point, basically. Like for me, like I would, when I'm in those situations where my team is like trying to recontest and I'm on a DPS hero like Doom that is like hunting kills, or this also goes if you like go Widow or something out of spawn. It's like the guy who goes Widow out of spawn does not ever go point. Like even if your teammates are saying I can't get point, like you just are like I don't care, basically. Like unless you literally know your whole team is dead. like you just have to hope that your teammates can make it. Because if you go car on a hero like Widow or a hero like Doomfist, and you don't, and like assuming you don't have ult or something, like you don't have an escape, then that's basically like saying, okay, we lost, but I'm gonna stall for 2 seconds. And when the enemy team has 3 minutes on the clock, it's like, for me, I'm just like 99 times out of 100, I'm like, YOLO, like if we win this fight, we win like 2 minutes off the clock. And if I go cart, I get like 2 seconds off the clock. So even if it's a low chance of success, it's like the reward is so high in terms of like the one time, like the 2 times out of 10 or 3 times out of 10 that you get a bunch of kills and you actually make the hold are worth like the missing that 2 second stall a few times. Like, and people will say C9 or whatever, but it's actually really stupid. Like the risk reward ratio is so out of control. Like if you can kill the backline and actually win the fight, that's like it's like literally 50 times better in terms of getting their time off the clock for their attack time. But yeah, that's it for the defense. Let's go on to the attack. You guys are playing Rush here. The biggest thing I want to say is, I mean, I don't like the D.Va pick, frankly. I just think D.Va is just like not a good hero. I mean, I know it's pretty harsh to say, but like Sigma is just a superior hero this patch. I mean, maybe after the nerfs. This isn't PTR, is it? It's live. So this is just like the D.Va 3-second booster, basically.
Yeah.
But Sigma is still like a broken hero. I mean,
this one is lost from last Wednesday. Scrim.
Okay. So that means, yeah. So I mean, I would really recommend playing Sigma in this comp, because like the D.Va has Matrix, sure, but like your Reaper can do just as much with like a deep Sigma shield. And realistically, the Sigma ult is just like better in the current meta. Like double shield makes the D.Va ult, and double shield plus BAP drone makes D.Va ult like kind of trash, honestly. So ults are the most important thing in the game. Picking heroes with like less than good ult. I mean, I think the Ana is a little weird, but I think it's a lot more justifiable in terms of like nanoing Reaper or whatever. Whereas I think Sigma is like, Sigma risk is just broken, honestly, this patch. So maybe that's not really good advice, because it's, it seems like the nerfs are coming in. That's a pretty big nerf that's coming in for Sigma. So I don't know if that'll actually still be the case, but yeah, D.Va is the other thing is, if you're gonna play D.Va, you absolutely cannot deathball, at least in this sort of comp. Like, you really, especially in this is like a classic point where you really want to split up with a Reaper comp, because going all down mid just means their team is going to like all run backwards, right? So like as your Reaper wants to close the distance and your D.Va wants to close the distance and you want to close the distance, their team can just kite straight back without thinking. They just like hold S while you run forward, and they just like, that's good for them, But if you really do want to be like pushing a flank or having like your Reaper TP behind, or just something, like you can't just all come from the front and expect that the enemy team's going to like misplay or something. Because if they just all play well and they're all like ready to help each other and kite together, then running in from the front it's just not really, it's not messing with them. You know what I mean? It's not adding any sort of distraction to them. Which when you're running a rush comp, you really want to be like emphasizing those distractions, like coming from different angles. Like I would recommend like maybe D.Va, Lucio, and Reaper pushing from the left side in through the hotel, because no one can stop them. Like the Reaper running with his teammates, like no one's gonna stop that. Whereas if you run in from the front, like I think what happens here is probably you get kited. Like at this point already, it's already a problem. Like you want your rush to be like one decisive rush off the choke, ideally, or like you want your first speed to be decisive. You don't want this sort of thing where you're like resetting cooldowns in a corner. It is a necessity if the rush goes wrong that you reset your cooldowns. Like you have to do this, but it's not what you want. So I would recommend like having a plan for like who's going where and just executing it right off the choke. Like give them the minimum amount of time possible to like read your comp, and like figure out what you're playing and what your strat is. Whereas like if I'm them and I see like I would not expect an Ana, So if the Ana comes through that left flank alone, or like with the D.Va or something, and like she might get a big nade, like no, people don't play Ana that much. So you really like, if you're going to be running these like odd characters, it's really important that you're like leveraging them in the first 15 seconds. Because right now when everyone's hiding, I guarantee that they all press tab and they're like, oh, they have an Ana, they have a D.Va, So it's just one of those things where I would like have a plan to split, because like by the time you come around this corner all from the front, they're all in like a safe position, relatively speaking. Like they're all like off point, they're all defensive. It's a decent wall, but again, it's like now look like even their backline is like they're starting to retake this hotel position, right? And if you guys had split and cleared that and like had like maybe I don't know who it should be honestly with this comp, but I mean that's why I would recommend running Sigma, because like Sigma plus whoever can like absolutely dominate that flank while your team rushes in the front. Sigma's so good at that role. But yeah, it's like a big problem now because now they're able to like they're only looking one direction, right? And you're only looking one direction. And when you're playing a rushing flanking comp, that's not in your advantage. And you're at a point now where basically the rush fails and they have too much HP. So this is what happens with the rush comp when the rush fails, is like you all die. So that's just what happens. I don't know if this is like there's nothing really to say here. It's just like once things go wrong with the rush comp, this is what will happen to you. So I would really recommend having like a more of a like we're gonna split up this way and just go with it and like maybe figure out what works best on a flanking through hotel. That's like a classic Kings Row play. Like that is. It always is good because it's really easy to like slip a sleep in, slip a nade behind the shields, and that's a difference between like a great dive and a dive that just completely fails. And it also means that, I mean, in this case, there's a widow behind you. You didn't necessarily know that, but like if there is somebody flanking, you have that hotel like preemptively controlled so that if somebody needs to go into hotel, like it's under your control. It's not their team can't just like freely go in there to hide when you rush them because you've cleared the flank and controlled it. I think you guys actually go for it now. Like, yeah, I see the Reaper and Lucio go through the left, and I think things go a lot better because of this.
Yeah.
Like, now your team actually has this hotel, like, under control. I mean, this is also because their team is playing high ground and stuff this time, so it's a bit of a different situation. But I would just really recommend that sort of play with, like, if you're going to run Reaper, he might as well be flanking. Especially with the new Reaper TP, like, you can just TP into the backline, YOLO, and just fucking go shoot people. Like, it's so hard to kill Reaper now off the TP, so... Yeah, get that left flank. I would even recommend doing all of these things at the same time. Like Reaper TP's behind, and you have a flank push, and you have a main push. And then you really create that surround that is hard to deal with. I think this is actually a big mistake for them to like have their Orisa be alone against your comp though. Like if you're ever playing against a Reaper comp like this, you cannot let an Orisa be alone. Because like 5 people stacked on the Orisa will kill her through Fortify. You know, Fortify is a good skill, but it's not keeping you alive through literally like a 5-on-1 with a Reaper. So I think from them, like if you're ever playing against this comp, you really cannot leave an Orisa alone on the low ground like that. Not unless you have some like you're gonna ult instantly when they go on like if you have Sig ult or something, you could bait them on the Orisa. But I don't know. It's just in general, don't like what you guys did was right. If you're like, oh, that guy's alone, let's fucking gank him, right? Like that is how this comp plays fundamentally. So. Yeah, that's definitely correct. Oh yeah, here I want to say this is really, really, really important. You're like not watching stuff that matters right now, and it causes things to go wrong. Like, what are you looking at here? And then this guy's like, you know, I'm just gonna pause it right where things go wrong, but like, you're not watching anything that matters, so you don't actually see, like in this situation, you need to be like eyes glued to that window. You know what I mean? Like, do not like I wouldn't even be pressing tab in this situation. I'd be like, I'd even be having my wall like out. You know what I mean? Like having it not out, but you know what I mean when it's like in the selection phase or whatever of the wall. I would even be doing that so that you only have to click one button to put the wall up, you know, because this is like a play like where you're hiding on the corner with Mei is all about that surprise factor. It's all about because you're holding this corner and you're just like 1 second more ready than their Mei that she gets walled out and she can't do anything, right? But in this case, the wall is just like you guys are in this like awkward ass position. I think this goes well because your Reaper like kills everybody, but like, you know, like you and the Orisa basically got stuffed to this fight. Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, no.
I wasn't saying anything except I just said that your Reaper got a huge ult here, which is like why you win. But basically, like when you're gonna hold these, like it's not. I think what you did was good to like hold in that corner with the library on Mei. It's like a good place to wall them. But you just have to like once you're in, that's your job is to hit that Mei wall. It's like that has to be your only focus until it happens, or until you decide I don't want a Mei wall or whatever. But you have to be like 100% focused on that. Like don't let yourself, especially on a hero like Mei, like you're most likely the very first cooldown of the fight is going to be your wall. So you need to be like super, super on point with that to start the fight off right. I mean, honestly, in this circumstance, you don't even necessarily need to start the fight with a wall, but if you're going to hold that corner, that is how you should play it. Here, all right, this is an important thing about Kings Row, important thing about Overwatch in general is it's about, you need to know on every map where it's like, this is something that's really worth studying when people are into like studying the game and like learning things is like, you should know on every single point of every single map where the cart has to be in order to stack it so they can't contest when they lose. So what that means is like, no, like the only times you should ever stack cart is when the cart is like so close that if you stack it, like so close to the capture point that if you stack it, they literally don't get there in time and they just have to give up. That's the only time that cart should ever be stacked, is when like they literally cannot reach the end. They cannot defend the checkpoint, or it's going to be a 1v6 when they defend checkpoint, you know? But like in this location, like, let me see if you see car here. This, you see the car here. I'm just saying through the wall, but like this is on King's Row, the point that you need, that the cart needs to be in order for them not to get a recontest is actually all the way around the corner. Like basically where you just were. Like it's like basically around the library corner between the pub mega and the library. That's where the cart needs to be for them not to get a recontest. But the cart is not there. The cart is significantly further back. So you should never stack the cart in this situation. Always X1, because X1 and push up with 5 and like harass them heavily while they come to cart. Like when the cart's this far back, they're going to get a touch if they want a touch. Doesn't matter. Like you stacking, you not stacking it changes nothing for them getting a touch on the car and getting a fight. But what you actually could do to prevent them from getting a touch on the car, prevent them from getting a fight, would be push up as 5 super, super hard, and like maybe even kill one of their spawners. I mean, if they make a pretty big error and they come out alone. But if they don't come out alone, you should be forcing them to regroup like in their own fucking spawn instead of regrouping like at the close corner of the cart. You know, like you should, like their spawners should not be able to leave their spawn at all with like 5 people pushed up until they have 6. So you basically stay into the fight, stay aggressive. But like basically right here, I would already be identifying that like your team does not need help getting this Widow kill. And you should be literally like you, Orisa, Reaper, and Lucio. I mean, maybe Lucio needs to get this kill, but like you and Orisa and Reaper should literally be like running into their spawn right now. Like go push up and start spamming them at the spawn. Like you stand car here, but this is in my opinion a big error. Like there's no value in staying on car here. You won't, like they get a fight anyway. And the other thing to know is like, I don't know, the cart stack is like terrible. Like the first person on car makes the cart move 100% speed. The second person on car makes the cart move like 116% speed. And the third person on car makes it move like 130% speed. So like the diminishing returns are extreme. So having multiple people on car is almost never correct unless you're past that point of no return. Like an example would be on Nimbani second point. The question is, have you gotten the car around the corner of the green bus or not? If it's around the corner of the green bus, they don't get a recontest. If it's not around the corner of the green bus, they do get a recontest. And the more comfortable you are with the map pool and knowing those points of no return for attack or defense, it matters a lot. Like on defense, you know, we have to go die in the car right now or else we don't get another fight on second. Or vice versa, on offense, you can say like, okay, they fought early enough to get another fight, or they're fighting too late, let's stack car, you know, and making that correct decision. Like if you make the wrong decision, like you think they won't get a touch and then you stack car and they actually get a touch, you've like missed out on a ton of, on a much better play, which is attacking them at spawn. Especially with your comp with Lucio. Yeah, people make the call to push up, but it's just too slow. Like even you are too slow. Like if you guys had pushed up as early as I wanted you to push up, you could have been literally around the next corner poking them in spawn. You know what I mean? Like with your Orisa. And especially when you're playing a comp, like, I mean, this is partly why Orisa Sig is so good, is that if you have Orisa Sig, they'll never fucking break your shields as you retreat. Like it'll never happen. Like if they don't have literally 6 players grinding it. So, I mean, even D.Va is okay at it. Like the moral of the story though is just get into their spawn and get aggressive. Like you keep coming back to touch car, but you gotta understand that's doing essentially nothing. Where if you had been up in their face, like what your Lucio is doing and shit on the corner, like everyone should be with the Lucio. Trying to bit boops, trying to get kills, like halt them in the pit. Like you could boop them back and halt them in the pit. You could wall one guy off and you rush him and kill him. Like if their team doesn't play perfectly, they could die really easily, and that would actually secure you second point for free. But stacking car is not going to secure you second point, you know? Like even though you did stack the car, it's not even remotely close to them being forced to touch point early. You know what I mean? Like they're still going to get this right side flank room controlled to defend from. Like there's just the card is not close enough. So it's a pretty, I harp on this a lot because this is like one of the most important things in Overwatch is knowing whether you can cap the point with a stack or whether you can't and you need to push up because that's better. Right? Like by already at this moment, they have a fair fight. Like they have a fair fight. So stacking car was useless. And if you had pushed up, you have a chance of sometimes like getting a kill on them. That means they actually don't get a fight at all, which is, You know, like that's the biggest difference of all. Instead of winning a fight that's close, it's like making them not even get a fight is the best thing in the game. It's like the most dominant. This is why Steve Ult is just bad. I mean, it's just way too easy to like shield that shit in this meta, I feel, and drone it even if you can't shield it. It's a good bomb though when they bongo, so they can't use bongo at the very least, but just it's a big thing. It's all good. This male is awfully aggressive. I think it's fine. They're not ready for it, so you get a good freeze. This is a good wall, kind of. I actually would recommend, in this circumstance, I would recommend, you know, the BAP, right? Like, you know the BAP is over on that right flank because you just walled him on. You just, like, froze him over there, right? So you should know that the BAP is probably, like, you even see him here. He's, like, on this right side. And that's where he's going to play, like, almost all. Like, basically, anytime they have a range support, that support should be there. I mean, that's, like, a really good position for a range support. But instead of this wall that you do where you're kind of, like, separating them, I would go for the wall that literally blocks the BAP from healing. Because in this sort of fight, if you block their heals for like 5 seconds, like, I mean, they're fucked, right? Like you just win because they don't have heals. So instead of walling like this to separate one guy out, like once you've already got, like that's the wall you go for at the start of the fight to like try and get a pick off, is to wall the first person in front. But late in the fight, you actually want, the best walls are the ones that literally like keep their supports out of the fight or keep a tank out of the fight. And you're like, go sit behind that wall for 8 seconds. Like that's all you're not going to kill him, but like by denying the utility that player offers, they might as well be dead. So that sort of wall, I think like a wall that pushes somebody out of the fight rather than a wall that like holds somebody into the fight is actually better when you get to these late like cleanup stages. Just cleanup stuff, but yeah, just one of those small details that can help. If I were you here, I would stay very aggressive and ask for a lot of support to keep trading, because Mail is like, again, Mail is like the most important ult. I mean, May honestly might be one of the best ults in the game this patch. So staying aggressive and like even asking for a forward shield to just keep poking and trading poke. Like you trade poke so efficiently on May with like the ice block. So it's like, even if you get halted, it's not all that high risk because you can like ice block and wall and run away. So you really want to stay aggressive, stay poking 24/7 if you can. If they have like a Widow or a Hanzo, you could be a little bit more conservative about it, like asking for shields and Matrix and stuff. But especially if they don't have those heroes, and even if they do, honestly, I think the risk is like worth it because, you know, every icicle counts, every instant of Mail counts. I don't think you can do this. My eyes watching you do this. I don't think this works. I could be wrong. You need a speed amp maybe, but you can do it off car. It's actually really easy off car, and you would actually be able to do it right here, which I actually don't hate so much. I think at this point it's like too late, you know, because they're actually fighting you now. But if you can get up there, it's really annoying for them. Like if you can get up there and have another wall cooldown when they fight, you can get whatever wall you want from the high ground. So it's a good position for May, and it's pretty annoying for them to deal with. Especially what I would really want you to do is if you have a Sigma, like you and your Sigma up there together, and you guys just camp that high ground forever. Or like if Sigma has ult, Sigma can like fly up there in his ult. It's really, really good for Sigma to do shit like that. But obviously you're playing D.Va, so it doesn't matter as much, but still, I like using the high ground. This is a great wall. This is like a really, I want to go back to this wall because this is a really, really good wall from you. Like sometimes you can't wall first, and I think especially actually against Reaper comp, walling first is like pretty, like not all that good because their Reaper breaks walls so fast that walling one guy out that's like really obvious you're going to try and kill that guy is probably not going to work because their Reaper just breaks the wall and they gets droned or saved or whatever. So the wall as like you using the wall, let me go back a little more. You using the wall as like a second wall to try and protect your Orisa is like big because basically they're going to get baited to think, oh, we caught an Orisa, let's kill her. And then your wall like screws up their game plan and they have to adjust. So just walling defensively ends up being big. Your Ana gets a big nade, which is also really useful. But they're all alive still. Okay, the B is really good from you guys. This is all good. You're focusing on freezing, and these chaotic fights is really annoying for them. If they get frozen, they die, so it's good. One thing is when the Mei is an ice block, I think the best thing to do when you're a Mei is literally just like reload and like left click the ice block once you like preemptively. Like once the ice block is like halfway done, just literally start left clicking the ice block. because it just slows her down and makes it easier for your team to kill her instantly. Not a big deal, but like, you know, if some heroes are really good at bursting her, but like, I mean, your Reaper can literally one tap her, right, with a headshot. So you shooting an icicle at her is like less important, I think, than you slowing her down and making sure that if she does get a wall off or whatever, at least she's slowed and someone else can finish her. Here again, there's an instance where I think stacking car is not correct because because if you like, this is again, like, this is the point of no, like, the enemy team is doing a good job of this. Exactly, basically is the point of no return for the car. Like, the car could even be a little further and I think they would still get a fight. So again, it's one of those situations where stacking doesn't give you a free fight. Like, the only reason to stack ever is getting a free fight because they literally cannot touch the point. So or forcing them to go 1v6 or something just to get a touch. That is also a reason to stack. But if they have enough time to actually come out as a group and still touch the point, you should never be stacking. Unless you're already in the ideal position, then you might as well push car. But yeah, like, they stop the card in time for a safe touch, especially because it's the Mei getting the last death. So like, their tanks are going to be out in a good timing. Like, if the Orisa were last, I don't know. But regardless, this is too far for you to stack car to actually win. So if I were you, again, I would go 5-1. Like, especially with playing an Ana. Ana's like the best hero to push car as one, because like, you don't lose any utility on Ana pushing car. You still do everything you need to do from range. So and there's a lot of heroes like that, like BAP and shit. But yeah, so I basically recommend rushing the spawn with, like, I want you to be like right on top of your Reaper and your Orisa here. And this is actually a situation where I actually think, because you have baby D.Va, your D.Va should hold car and your Ana should go for like a nade in the spawn, or like go for like a point blank sleep or something. Just like get really, really aggressive, because this Orisa being out here on the, like, if you're there, she's dead, right? Like, if you're there and you put a wall in the spawn and you Reaper and Orisa just rush her, she's dead. So her even being here is actually a big mistake, because if you played really, really aggressively, not only are you really close to Mei ult, which means you really want to be aggro and like getting a Mei ult and fucking using it in the spawn, like, it's the best thing you can do. The other thing you want to do here, just a small tip, is when you are going to wall a spawn and you're trying to wall like 5 people into a spawn, like you're getting an Orisa out, you need to make sure the wall is not sideways. Like,
I don't know what's going on with Discord. I need to see it again. But like 2 seconds.
Okay. No worries. Yeah. So basically what I was saying is, when you're gonna, like, what I want you to do here is push up with your Reaper and Orisa and wall out their Orisa. Because she should never, if she comes out like this, she's like throwing basically, because she should just die for free here. Like, you don't even need to ult her. Like, if your Reaper, your Orisa, and your Lucio are all together pushing, I mean, your D.Va's in baby form, so maybe she wants to be like careful and just stack car with Ana just because she's a baby D.Va. It's like a special exception because she's so weak, right? She doesn't want to die before she gets mech. But at the very least, the 4 of you Reaper, Mei, and Orisa, you, Reaper, Orisa, and Lucio should all be together in the spawn here and like getting into that left spawn, because that Orisa is like dead meat if you wall her. And what I was saying about the wall is, you should make sure if you're gonna wall like 5 people in spawn, like it's not a wall that's trapping 1 person, it's a wall that's trapping 5 people. You need to put the wall like long ways into the choke. And what that means is, instead of breaking 1 pillar, they need to break 5, which is not possible realistically. I mean, eventually they'll be, like, it's better for there to be cracks on either side of the wall than it is for it to just be like a flat wall that the Reaper, that like, if you know what I mean, like if you put a flat wall on their spawn, like one that goes long ways on the spawn door and perfectly seals the spawn door, they're going to break that wall in like 1 second, right? Like the Reaper is shooting it, the rest, like everyone in their Reaper and D.Va, and everyone in the spawn is like, shoot the fucking wall. It's really obvious, right? But if you put it long ways into their spawn, like in spawn doors is the best place to do this, because it's the long, like skinny hallway chokes. If you put it long ways into the spawn door, they'll never break. I mean, it's 5 fucking pillars. It's 2,000 HP for them to get out of spawn. So compared to 400 HP of them getting out of spawn. So if you're up there, make sure you do that long ways wall, but then this Orisa would 100% die. Because that D.Va is even matrixing her, like, and this wall you go for is okay, but it's going to break almost instantly. Like, they're already out. And it took me like 2 seconds for them to get out of that wall, right? Because it's like their whole fucking team is shooting it. So it really does need to be like, and you can't place it that effectively unless you're right up in their spawn. So that's another reason to be right up in their spawn, like shutting down this contest. It's so much better for them to like slip a Lucio out the other side and he's touching cart and you're literally killing their whole team in the spawn. And then like your Ana's killing the Lucio on cart. And then like they're just ragtag running to car, versus like if you fight on the car, like they want to fight on the car too. Like that's where they have to fight. So if you are fighting in their spawn off the car, then they basically have to leave people behind. They have to be like, oh fuck, like our Riz is dead, someone else go car, you know. And it's splitting them up. They're not able to fight together. But if you stay on car and you let the fight be like an actual 6-on-6 on car, that's no longer all that good for you anymore. And look, God, your Reaper's doing a good job getting super aggro, but I mean, you do kill a Reaper, but it's basically like you basically don't add anything to that kill, right? Like once you're on a hit the sleep. Yeah. And again, this is like another terrifying male from my perspective. And this is partly why you really want to be up in their spawn. Because actually the best place to wall in this situation, or the best thing to do in this situation is the first thing you do is you're up in their spawn with your Reaper right next to your Reaper where he is right now. You're walling their spawn, and then you literally drop an ult again in the spawn. And you get like 20 seconds of blocking a spawn door. I mean, like it's broken, you know? So like sure, the Reaper is going to like get behind or TP out or whatever. I think he like TPs out behind you. Yeah, I think he just TP'd actually when you turn around. So your Ana hits a big sleep here, but you basically don't add anything to defending your team from this Reaper, right? Like your Ana either hits the sleep or she doesn't. She lives or she dies if she hits her sleep or doesn't. But regardless, you don't make an impact on that happening or not happening. What you do make an impact on is like killing, like your Reaper dies here basically, and I think you're kind of baiting him, frankly. Like I think the Reaper and your Orisa are actually doing exactly the right thing, and I think it's just because they're insufficiently supported that it doesn't go well. But if you guys go hard on the spawn, like with 6 people, or not 6 people, but like with as many people as you can possibly spare, so minimum 4 with this team comp, maybe your D.Va wants to stay car because she's scared she's gonna get killed, and your Ana wants to stay car to like heal and push it or whatever. But like honestly, I would even consider in this situation like literally having a solo baby D.Va, and then your Ana is up in the spawn with you killing people, like just being a DPS. That's how important it is to get in the spawn here. Because like at this moment, right? I mean, obviously the D.Va misses the eat, which is scary.
Yeah, I didn't saw that D.Va time. Didn't really, like...
Yeah. D.Va is one of those things where like, especially the new D.Va, like the quicker delay, you really got to be careful about that shit. Like generally speaking, I will like freeze the D.Va before ulting. That's the best way to do it. Is you literally left click her until she's frozen, and as soon as she's frozen, you drop the ult and she can't eat it. And then you can usually freeze her again, even if she tries to fly out, she gets frozen again and gets the full blizzard freeze. She'll probably die in that. But yeah, I think this fight has kind of already gone wrong for you, realistically. I mean, even that's what's crazy is that they come back in this fight, even though you get all these kills here. And I think it all comes back to your Reaper dying and your Orisa being low. But that's kind of on you. I think that's on you and your Lucio. Like you guys, I think they were doing the right thing, and it just everyone needed to follow up that play. And they get a blizzard, and like this is what happens when the fight happens on car. Is they actually fight together. Their Orisa and their Mei actually get, like everyone on their team gets to fight together because the fight is on car. But if the fight is in their spawn, by definition they cannot be together, right? Somebody has to go car, and you're in the spawn. So whatever you're fighting in the spawn is going to get abandoned. So you're going to probably get free kills in there. And then you can go back, and if the guy on car is still alive versus your Ana, like in a one-on-one, that's fine. Because your Ana is like obviously not the best here at killing those people. But then it's better to like wipe their spawners and then go back and wipe the people on car than it is to just take the fight on car from the beginning. At this point, you guys are lost. Well, maybe not actually. Once you kill this Orisa, it's like kind of winnable, but like even with all these kills, you even kill Doom. Like I don't know. You guys definitely lose this fight. I watched this before, but I mean, like, what's crazy is how many kills you're getting and you still lose, right? And that just goes back to like how dangerous it is to fight close to people's spawns. Like, fighting close to the spawn is one of the most important things of Overwatch. Like, you guys have gotten like fucking 8 kills this fight, and they have gotten like 2, and they're still gonna come back and win this fight, right? And that just speaks to like how devastating the spawn advantage is. So you really like when it comes to these final fights that the enemy is going to get a touch on, you really want to be like decisively wiping them by going into the spawn rather than trying to like actually win a fair fight on car. Like the moment you're taking a fair fight, I feel like you've already made a mistake. Like the fight should not be fair. You should be abusing them. Yeah, it's kind of once the Bastion comes out that things go really, really wrong. But, you know, that's just what happens if you can't stuff the spawn. But then again, like, this is not the worst situation in the world. They had to switch to, like, a really terrible team comp just to make that hold. So, like, you're set up to win. But you should have won that. Like, you totally should have won that last fight, right? Like, and I think it all comes back to that missing that opportunity to, like, truly stuff the spawn. And you're Mei. You should be the one who's like, I want to stuff the spawn. I want to stuff the spawn. Like, that is your wheelhouse of, like, getting in that choke. Any choke that you can do that shit I was talking about with the wall where it goes sideways and it like you put 5 pillars between their spawners and the part, that is like god tier for Mei. So anytime there's a spot in a map where you can do that, you should be aiming for it. You should be telling your team, I want to do this play and wall them in here. Let's fight here.